human error. A lot of data breaches occur because of human error. And you need to know this. The Commission has said, just because it's a human error and it's not intentional, it's not a defense. Okay? They don't take, it's not about intent, it's about, do you have the measures in place to prevent this employee from doing it? Okay? We talked a little bit about this, the care plan, alright? I will go through this fairly quickly, highlight only certain things to you. Now, shutting down the compromised system is something which is important if you are facing an electronic emergency. That means your system is getting hacked. Before it goes into the rest of your systems, especially if you have a large group, okay, you need to plug it up. This is essentially what happened in SingHealth also. When they first understood the magnitude of the breach itself, of the hack, they immediately isolated the systems away from the internet. Okay, so that's key. A lot of other steps, resetting passwords, okay, could be one. Changing access rights, looking at lapses and making immediate actions to stop that from happening again. Notifying police. Sometimes if it's a theft case, if it's a serious data breach case, somebody stealing things, stealing data from the company, or highly sensitive data got stolen, that's one of the key things where the police is being involved. Okay. You need to make an assessment right after you contain the breach. You need to look at how many people are affected, who are the people affected, what kind of personal data was involved, additional measures. All these things need to start getting into a report. So a lot of organizations, those of us who come from the bigger organizations, as part of protocol, whenever anything happens, the first thing they always ask is, I want an incident report. Okay? If somebody complains about employment misconduct, whether it's harassment, whether it's employee misconduct, any kind of misconduct, the first thing is always incident report. So the same thing happens for data breach. A lot of these goes into that incident report that you will capture for the breach. Okay? So there's a huge checklist for this. For those of you who are interested to know more, you can always approach me. And then you go to reporting to people. Third parties, if you have authorities that govern the industry you are in, you need to start looking at notifying them. If you have individuals whose data is being breached, you need to notify them, which is exactly what happened in SingHealth. Some of us may have received the SMS notification. Your data was one of the 1.5 million people who got leaked, and they notified us, right? So these would be again a checklist of what the notification should be. The details, I will just leave you to perhaps go and read up. If you've got questions, you can ask me later on as well. This is a new rule that has just recently come up as well from the PDPC, where they are saying two things you must do if something happens. There's a 72-hour time frame after which you discover it's a data breach. You need to report if it's one of two scenarios. Significant harm, okay, resulting in significant harm, which usually would mean highly sensitive information, NRIC, health, financial, minors, or if it involves a large number, which is more than 500 individuals. So if you get into an incident where any of these applies, one of the other things you need to start looking at is notify the PDPC. Okay? Again, a full checklist of what the notification should contain. I will leave you all to read through on it. So now the other thing is, sometimes data breach takes a very long time to go investigate. What the PDPC also recommends is interim notification is necessary. Okay, interim notification is necessary. They always want to know if something is wrong. If you are trying to cure it, carry on curing it, but let them know first. Okay. And then you get to evaluate the various what problems there are. Why this is in bold is also because this is one of the main blind spots for a lot of organizations. We don't self-help enough. And one of the main self-help things you can always do is make sure your contracts with third-party vendors are properly done, which takes care of data protection policies. Okay. You're going to decide if it's operational policy related. You're going to decide whether it was caused by resource related issues. You're going to decide whether it's caused by employee related issues. And then your rectification processes can take it on from there. If it's management related issues because senior management is just not on the ball enough about data protection, then you need to again try to ensure your role as a DPO. How do you rectify that? This is the big part, right? At the end of the day, we look at what happens if there's a breach. Do you all know what the maximum fine is? Those who came from the Chinese one will know, but what is the maximum fine? What do you think the maximum fine is? What do you think the maximum fine is?
9,000.
Any ideas? What do you think is a fair maximum fine? Data protection. 100,000? Sorry? Up to 100,000. Okay, up to 100,000. Any higher?
1 million.
1 million. Who say 1 million? Wow, this one got golden prize one. Okay. Your Singapore law mandates fines of up to $1 million. Okay. So for those of us who have been following, in the SingHealth case, there were two organizations involved. One is SingHealth, the other one is the IT service provider to SingHealth. SingHealth got fined $250,000. The IT service provider got fined $750,000. And they actually said in the report, but for other good things that they have done, the IT service provider would have been fined a full amount of $1 million. That was how serious they thought the SingHealth breach was. Okay? This is the other question I always get. If I'm an employee and the data breach occurred because of me, what happens? The good news is the employees never get punished by the PDPC. Okay? The PDPC always goes after the organization. The organization, the company. If it, in the case of say hack, right, sabotage, right, same thing, same thing. So they will start asking themselves, did you have reasonable security measures in place to prevent that from happening? Right. So you will realize their assessment is a very objective one. They don't really go into what is the intent of the employee. Was it negligence? Was it intentional harm? They will look at what measures have you put in place. Is that sufficient, reasonable? And that's why we mentioned earlier, one of the things I mentioned is, in fact, it doesn't even matter whether there was a breach or not. If somehow somebody blew a whistle on the organization, there's no breach, nobody complained anything, but somehow they just decided to do an audit, and they go through an investigation, and they realize that even though there's no breach, you didn't comply with any of the obligations, you'll get in trouble. Okay? We'll spend a little bit of time and go through this because I want to show you some of the reported Singapore cases and show you from a perspective